In this video, I promised you a summary of the Golden Bachelor. I'm going to call this video This, Not That. I've seen this in fashion and I love doing a breakdown, but I want to show you what works and what doesn't. And I'm wearing black and white because not everything is as black and white as you think it is. And I've got 7 lessons on love from the Golden Bachelor. Welcome to Reality TV Therapy with me, Dr. Diane. So it's been a week now and the dust has settled on Gary and Teresa and Leslie, and I do a lot of backstory on this. I've listened to podcasts with Leslie. There's a psychiatrist that came out, Carol Lieberman, and she's saying things like Teresa should run, it's a big mistake with Gary. And I just have to say, I've been watching reality TV show for a long time. And I actually worry about this narrative. Why? Because I really want to protect the cast members. And what happens is those people, let's say right now, Teresa and Gary, are under a lot of stress. I'm not naive to the whole story, as I talked about it last week, about the Hollywood Reporter article. I know all of that. But remember, these are highly edited shows. And what I don't want to contribute to the noise about making somebody's mental health worse, like saying things like, run, this is a huge mistake, because we don't know. We only know a quarter of it. And we, myself and you, we have the privilege of sitting behind, watching as the producers take us along this journey. So I just know that what happens is, somebody else said, what's the difference between lust versus love? Love only starts after the cameras stop filming. And at this point, what I do know is that Gary and Teresa are planning on getting married January 4th live in La Quinta. And I'm just going to wish them well. I'm not here to drag them down or to say, girl, you're making a mistake, because the truth is somewhere in the middle. Again, it's more in the gray. It's not so black and white. And then I read other things that say, well, maybe Gary isn't such a tightwad. Someone said that his net worth, he's worth $1.5 million. Whereas Carolyn, the ex, was saying that, he was a cheapskate. Who knows? But here's what I love. And we didn't even know the gift of the Golden Bachelor is about second chances. So people would say, how could you be, Team Leslie? Well, because I believe in second chances. And if you have lived any life like most of us have, nobody gets it right the first time. If you're lucky, you do. But many of us may love and lose, meet somebody later in life. And I just really think we all deserve second chances. And so I'm just going to leave this there. But the gift for me of the Golden Bachelor that we didn't even know we needed was not just about finding love, because that's nice, but finding importance. And when Joan said that we're all invisible, I really started thinking about this a lot. So here's what's changed in society. You let me know what you think, if you agree with this. That in today's society, and I feel this with my own stepchildren and with younger people, they don't even think to ask our opinion. Have you felt this? Where, what do? They turn to their phone and they look at Google instead, as if Google's the expert, instead of the elder person or the senior in the room to ask them, what did you think and how do you feel? So what I loved about the Golden Bachelor is that these women were important, that Gary was important, that his story was important. We learned so many great things. Again, that Leslie was with Prince and Faith has this amazing history. So does Sandra and Ellen and Nancy. So many of these women have such fascinating history. And if we really just turn to them and ask them their opinion, we're inviting them in. So that's what I'm doing here. Again, I'm not naive to all the commentary out there. If you want to think that Gary's a con artist, but you see, it's not about Gary and it's not about Leslie. It's about this group that deserves to be seen. An interesting fact, you may not know this, but when it comes to reality shows, do you know that 80% of people say that they would do it again, that they had no regrets? Even Leslie, who was blindsided on the podcast, is saying, I have no regrets. Because we all know that there's only going to be one winner. And but you are putting yourself out there, and now who knows what's going to come. And why I follow these shows is because it's not just being on the show, it's then what do you make of it? What do you learn about yourself too by being in the show? I've talked with previous contestants. They've said exactly that they learned so much. And here's the thing. I really think that there's a formula that reality dating shows use that we're actually not using that same formula in real world dating. The formula is turn in your phone, focus on that one person, and really give it your all. Go all in. But here's the problem with dating. I have a lot of clients who are in their 60s, even 70s, and 20s and 30s. I've got all clients of all different age groups. And here's what's happening in real world dating. Everybody's playing chicken. What do I mean by that? Like the game of chicken where you move and I'll move when you move. I'm waiting on something. I'm waiting for assurances. I'm waiting for validation. I'm waiting for you to say that you're all in. And on these shows, you can't do that. You can't wait, because if you're waiting, you're out. Okay. So that's the formula that works. Why do I say it works? You know why? Because 4 women on this season, probably more than any other season if you haven't seen the show before, 4 women, Ellen, Faith, Leslie, and Teresa, all profess their love to Gary. That wasn't a fluke. I know there's trappings and there are these beautiful dates, but he did turn to them and did make them feel special. And that's the formula that works, and that's what's not happening in love. Okay. So I'm going to start with my 7 lessons in love. But before I do that, I want to stop for a minute, and I want you to take a pause this video, and go to my website. My website is Back to Love Doc. I'll tag it here, Back to Love Doc, and take my love style quiz. BackToLoveDoc.com/quiz. Again, I'll link it here. In 2 minutes, you are going to know your attachment style. You've heard me allude to it. Does Leslie have an anxious attachment style? Does Gary have an anxious attachment style? Do you have an anxious attachment style? So I've taken attachment theory. This is what I've done after graduate school, gone deep into the theory, but I created my own quiz. Why? Because I actually didn't like the names. Like talking about the anxious ambivalent person, I think that person is nervous Nora or nervous Nick because their nervous system is highly sensitive. Instead of saying the word avoidant, I say independent Isabel or Ian. Instead of saying that you're fearful avoidant or disorganized, as in the classic attachment term, I say you're confused Connie or Connor. And or you could be secure like Sophia or Steve. But in 2 minutes, you're going to find out what your love style is, and then I want you to listen carefully to my advice for you because everyone's different and you might need to work on some things. Okay, so I'm going to pause, take the quiz, and let's come back. Now that you know your love style, you also in your results got either your high or low expressive. Why is that important? A high expressive person is someone who might need to filter, who doesn't have any problems expressing themselves, might talk too much, might fall in love too quickly, versus a low expressive person actually needs to learn to be more vulnerable and to find their voice. But you're going to have your your attachment style and then your communication style. And that's together, those 2 things make up what your love style is. So now that you know that, listen carefully as I talk about do this, don't do that. Okay, lesson number 1, make a great first impression. What do I mean? Online, you've got 60 seconds max to make a good first impression. On The Bachelor, the first impression is the limo entrance. Do this, not that. Do this, meaning do this, lean into it. Make a good first impression. Don't be negative. So what's really important is that if you look at the top 3 women, and you could think that this was gimmicky, but the top 3 women all came in and made a good first impression. Let's talk about Leslie. She came out, do you remember, dressed like an old woman. She had her walker and her wig, and then she threw it off and she said, no, I don't need any help. Brilliant. I love this. Do this. Okay, Teresa, it was her birthday. I heard in a podcast that she was talking to the producer saying, oh my gosh, the filming is on my birthday. Wouldn't it be funny if I came out in my birthday suit? And she went through with it. It's about standing out. Faith on the motorcycle. Then there were others, right? There was Edith, who came out in the beautiful gold dress and had the gold poppers. That wasn't an accident. She has that gorgeous hair. I'm sure they put her in that gold gown. They have done that in the past. Who else? April came out with her eggs. Sandra came out with her relaxation technique. But you have to be memorable. Not this. You don't want to do this, which is what Kathy did. Being Kathy, she said, oh, I came out walking like the other women didn't. Or Patty, who was Matt James' mother. Matt James was the first Black Bachelor. Patty was his mother. She didn't really go all in. I didn't see her making a first impression at all. There was like no energy from her. So do this, go all in. Make sure that your profile pictures look good. On a first date, pop some red lipstick. Maybe wear red nail polish. Do something that catches that other person's eye. Because again, we only have so many seconds to make a first impression. What kind of first impression are you going to make? That's lesson 1. Lesson 2, go all in. Okay. I loved this about Leslie, that she said she had no regrets because she went all in. So did Ellen. They all had good things to say because you're taking responsibility for you. Leslie went all in on her dancing in the talent show. So did April. So did Joan, right? She was nervous, but she went all in. And then going all in on the show means being vulnerable, but that's the same thing in dating. You have to go all in. Faith went all in night 1, bringing her guitar and singing. That could make somebody vulnerable. But you telling about yourself and your history, how else are people going to get to know you? Ellen also went all in by being the first one to tell Gary, I'm falling in love with you. Most people regret what they don't do instead of what they did do. Nancy went all in, put on the wedding dress. She was sad, but she worked through it and she went to Gary and she told him. Sandra went all in with that pickleball shot that she almost ended up in the crowd. That's what to do. Not that is waiting and playing chicken, as I said, waiting for someone else to show interest. If you're interested, show interest and be an interesting person. Lesson 2. Lesson 3. This is a tough one. Don't blindside partners and don't allow yourself to be blindsided. I know that's going to be controversial. Let me explain. So blindsides just don't happen on The Bachelor. They happen in real life too. And if you've been dating for any period of time or been in a relationship and had someone leave you, divorce you, cheat on you, it can happen, right? But oftentimes it's more likely to happen when the person is insecure. So now you've taken my quiz and let me tell you a little bit about the results. Okay, so I've had 90,000 people take my quiz. And the problem is the majority of people, 75% of people are insecure, meaning they're the nervous Nora types, they're the independent Isabel types, the confused Connie types. That makes up 75%. Only 25% of people are secure. It's going to happen. You're going to, even if you are secure, you're going to come across somebody else who is insecure, who might have different needs than you. But the problem is, why do blindsides actually happen? As a psychologist, I just have to look at this and say, what happens? Most of the time, one person has pretended to be someone else, or they lack the courage and communication skills to actually come clean. Okay. The other problem can be is that you pretend to be somebody that you're not. Okay. And this is why I was Team Leslie, because she was authentically herself. We have to show up authentically ourselves and see what the other person responds to us. People said, well, she should have been more subdued or more like Faith. But that would blindside Gary in the end. Okay, let me explain that more. So if I am a nervous Nora type, okay, I'm an anxious person, which I was, and I pretend to come across very cool, non-emotional, I'm actually doing you a disservice. Why? Because I can play that role for a little bit of time until when? Until I'm under stress, and then I'm hurt, and I am emotional, and then my feelings are going to come out later. Okay? I've pretended I'm cool, calm, collected, rational. Now I'm under stress. You've backed away. And I come forward and I'm really upset and I'm really crying. You're going to go, who is this? Who is this person? You were one way and now you're another. I can't trust that. And you kind of sold me a bag of goods. You see, this is why being authentically yourself is going to help you. Now, Gary, it's a whole other thing. He blindsided Leslie, and we're going to get to that because I want to talk about taking accountability, which I don't think actually Gary did. I'll get to that. But the best way is for you to actually be yourself. Okay. Now, let's get into it with Gary. Again, I'm going to talk about it in the accountability, but he clearly was the only one who knew what was going on. How else could Gary have not blindsided Leslie? Let me talk about this. Well, on all the other shows, again, if you haven't watched The Bachelor before, you may not know this, but they usually give them a journal. Okay? Why is that important? Well, journal writing is a way to access your unconscious and to actually hold you accountable by putting paper to pen and writing down your thoughts. And I think if Gary had had more time, because this was a speeded up series, right? It was 3 weeks, 4 weeks, so short. If you had more time to digest this and think about this, and Gary sat with himself and wrote in his journal, I mean, he literally, and I said this was so unfair, he went from Leslie's date to Teresa's date, and he was exhausted. But if he had time to think and process it and write that through, he wouldn't have been so distracted with Teresa, and he would have had more time to think that through. But I think they were just pouring gasoline on the fire and it was going too fast. And journaling is the look that I'm looking for. That would be do this, not that, which is Gary then feels horrible. And that's why he's crying when he goes to Jesse and says, I took a good person and broke their heart. Do this, be conscious, slow it down, slow down the process, journal, and think through your next moves. Lesson 4, I want to call it narrate your own story. My question to you is, are you comfortable with your own story? So I hate to bring in this analogy. People don't like it, but bear with me for a minute. This idea that dating is like interviewing. It's a little bit like on a date, you have a resume. What is a resume? Well, my resume is my dating, my relationship history. Have I been married? Have I been widowed? Have I never been married? This is your history, and it's going to be important to the other person who's sitting across from you who's a potential mate. So we all have to narrate our own story, but sometimes our stories come out positive and sometimes they come out negative. Now, on the Golden Bachelor, your story is your story. You really can't change it, right? It's not like if I'm widowed, I'm not making that up. If I'm divorced, I'm not making that up. I can't gloss that over, otherwise I'm lying, right? But some people are so uncomfortable telling their own story that it looks to the other person that I'm being cagey. And if I don't have an answer to those questions about tell me about yourself, then I look like I'm hiding something. Okay, so when I say do this, not that, I think actually Teresa did a really good job managing her narrative. Now, her narrative is easier to tell than others, right? Her narrative is easier to tell than Leslie's narrative. But Teresa really was narrating her story. This was about Billy. I was married for so many years. We were happy together. I still talk to him then. And she does a good job reassuring Gary that she knows what she's doing. Gary himself said in the After the Final Rose that, Teresa addressed all the red flags before we even got there because she was just out there. She's talking about it. And she also said, only choose me if you're 1000% sure. Okay. Do this. Be like Teresa. Have no shame talking about your story, whatever your story is. Do this, not that. Not that would be focusing, and I hate to say this, but I wanted Leslie to pull back on talking about having a bad picker, and even Faith when saying that this wasn't in the cards for her. Because sometimes that's kind of like a tell or a give, that I'm saying that I'm not good in relationships. And I want you to just think about how the person on the receiving end is hearing that. If I'm saying, I don't have a good picker. Now, here's a way to fix your story, and I want to show how to change the story, which is to say, that was the past, but I've learned, and now I'm better. Okay, now I want to show you how I think Leslie could have handled this better. Okay, give me a second. Let me change. Gary, you have a lot of great women here. Some of them widowed, some divorced, and maybe you don't get it. But let me tell you, I appreciate you even more than you know. That I feel a little bit intimidated because you were like happily married, and I wonder why I wasn't. But I've been here and I've been trying. I've been married twice, and those haven't worked, but I have learned so much about myself, and I know exactly what I'm looking for. I know what I have to offer. I've done my therapy, and I'm a different person at this stage in my life than I was when I was dating, my first husband when I met him and had children, and you know how that goes. And I wanted the happily ever after. I wanted till the death do you part, but it didn't work for me. And I don't want to have any shame about my history, because I'm proud that I have been trying. I love men, I love relationships, and I know that I make for a really great partner. And you've been dating, and I've been dating too, and the fact is just wonderful that we're both here together. And you won't regret that, because I see that the best is yet to come for me. Did you see the difference there? How I'm asking Leslie to be more forthcoming and not having shame about my story. It's very different if I've integrated my story into my psychology, I'm positive about the future, and I present to my partner a story that has cohesion, that makes sense. Again, we can't make up a new history, but it's more like, how do I want you to feel about my story? Do you have faith in me as a partner? Because back to interviewing, if my history, if I'm even going in for a job and I have no experience, I have to say something about, you're going to have to take a chance on me, and I'm really in it, and you're not going to regret it. Okay? So let me share a personal story about do this, not that. When I was dating, and I'd mentioned that I obviously was a therapist, I was busy with my career. But men now, I got to 40, I was still single, and men oftentimes looked at that like, how is this therapist at 40 never married? I had to have a story that made sense to the question, why are you single? Especially if I'm dating a lot of divorced men. I kind of look like there's something wrong with me, right? So do this, I'd have to be comfortable with my own story. I would say, listen, I was in graduate school for many years, which is what I was. I was engaged. I was engaged to be married. I was young. I was 24. We'd been together for 5 years. I moved across the country for this man, which is my story, and it didn't work. And I'm really grateful that it didn't work, because I would have gone ahead with it. And I think I probably would have been divorced too. I was young. I was in love. I gave it my all. And I'm grateful that I got down that path, that I said yes. But then I'm also grateful that it didn't work, that I took the time to figure out myself. I've been to therapy, and now I'm dating again because I'm really committed to this process and I want to find a good partner. And now more than ever, I am ready. I'm ready. Are you? Is this a good time for you? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? You see, if I'm comfortable with my own story, then I can ask you questions. If I'm uncomfortable with my story, then you can see that I wouldn't bring it up. So that's what I'm talking about in Narrate Your Own Story. All right, we're moving along. This is 5. Take accountability. All right, in particular, I got to pose this to Gary. I can't let Gary off the hook. Gary took a little bit of accountability with Faith, and he kind of apologized that he got ahead with himself, but I don't think he actually gave really good closure with Leslie. And the truth is, on all of these, the Katie Couric interview, etc., he's really bypassing. This is back to where I think the alcoholism adult children of alcoholics, again, no excuse, are not good at like sort of owning their history and talking about it. And oftentimes the rush is to avoid it. Oh, we're fine now. Let's just talk about what's going on now. That was then. And I don't think that Gary's doing a really good job. So I'm going to dress as Gary, and I'm going to show you how Gary could have done this better. Okay? Do this, Gary. Watch now. Knock, knock, knock. Leslie, hold on a second. Leslie, I came back, and as you probably know, this isn't good news. You were so right. I was off. You're a very perceptive person, Leslie, and it wasn't you that was off, it was me. And for this, I am so sorry that I've changed my mind. This is going to come as a shock to you. I know we just spent time together, intimate time together, and I said some things I shouldn't have. But here's some things you should know about me. I just have to come clean. I have to take accountability for my history. Leslie, I had an alcoholic mother. It's not an excuse. I'm a 72 grown-ass man. I should know better. But this dating thing is kind of new to me. I'm used to like being married, and I'm used to like saying I love you, and I got reckless with saying I love you because it just felt like I was back in a relationship. I have to own that. But as a result of my mother being an alcoholic, I lack boundaries and I don't have a filter. And for this, it looks like I was reckless with you. I promised you some things. I talked about a future. I know, just last night. But here's the thing. I now see a future with someone else. And it's not about you. It's not that you're not good enough. It's not that you're broken, Leslie. It's that for whatever reason, I'm kind of a rational person, a frugal person, and I'm finding that that's a better fit with someone else. But you, Leslie, are kind and loving, and you wore your heart on your sleeve. And I just know that you're going to find someone who loves and appreciates all those things about you. But my biggest apology is by painting a picture of something and now having to back it up. I know that this is a show, but this has got to be so horrible for you. And whatever I can do, I know I can't take away that, but thank you from the bottom of my heart for being open and vulnerable. And if I learned anything in this lesson, is that I shouldn't do that, and I won't let that happen again. But I am sorry, Leslie, and it's not about you. This is on me. Please accept my apology. I'll see myself out. If you were Leslie and you heard what I just said that Gary had said, how would you have felt? Would you have felt better? And now, also, if you were Teresa, watching Gary say that to Leslie, I bet you'd feel a lot better about that, wouldn't you? You would feel like he was human. He got caught up in the moment. He knows himself. He's taking accountability for himself. And there is nothing sexier than someone taking accountability for themselves. A couple other things I want to mention. The do this, not that. There were a couple things in like the women tell all. I didn't think Kathy took good accountability for her zip it. I thought that was left out. April, I thought, again, had been negative about Gary. I don't think she really owned that either. So I don't like those two things. But do this, take accountability, own your stuff, say your apologies, and I'm sorry is no ifs, ands, or buts. Just I'm sorry. Okay. Number 6, heal your attachment wounds. I could do many videos, as I have, about this. I'm passionate about this. If you are not in a family that you became secure, you're that lucky 25%, and you're more like the 75% like the rest of us, you can earn your attachment by healing your attachment. So it's so important that you feel calm in your body, because this is what a healed person feels. You have a positive story about love. You can think rationally, and you can act with confidence. Okay, do this. Be a healed person, not that. Not getting negative, not avoiding hard questions. But if you can be more healed, just think about how much easier dating would be if 75% of people were secure instead of insecure. So check out my website, there's plenty more offerings there for you to help you if you are an anxious person, an avoidant person. Again, everybody has different things to work on. But that's number 6. Now, number 7, I want to close with this. Another tricky one. If you want to learn the lessons, how can you choose differently? Okay, this is the tricky part. As I said, this is a 2-person system. There's me and my attachment style, and then there's you and your attachment style. And I have to see how together as a puzzle we work together. But in dating, I know if I'm improving, if I'm making better choices. Why? Because oftentimes what people do is they unconsciously keep making the same choice, expecting different results. And you know what we call that? We call that insanity. Insanity is when I keep doing the same thing, hoping I will get different results. And this is why I'm back to Gary and Teresa are grown people, mature people. I actually have to trust them. Gary, I'm guessing, chose Teresa because she is more rational. They have a similar background. Maybe choosing Leslie, who's more emotional, would have been more like his mother, and choosing someone different is more like Teresa. Maybe. Okay. Only you know. But I think it's important to break your pattern. So for me, I will just say what I needed to do instead of this, not that, is I needed to say, I'm not going to date any narcissists anymore. Okay, that was my pattern. My pattern, because I was anxious, that I would go for men who were hot and cold. Oftentimes narcissists. Why? Because they were successful, attractive men, a little bit more on the cool side. But I had to get to the point where I said, I'm done with those types of people. They haven't worked out for me in the past. And I chose differently. But owning that means, what is it in this person that is hooking me? Not just I have a bad picker. Why are these people attracted to me and I'm attracted to them? Why are these people coming into my life? Well, I had to realize that when I was with the narcissist, I would work really hard to get their attention. And that to me felt like childhood, working hard to get my parents' attention. And that feels like love. So the change, doing something differently, means I'm done with that. I don't want to work so hard. I don't want a narcissist. I want someone who's healed, someone who's going to make a better partner. And then together, we're going to have to accept each other. Okay, these are complicated things. I don't want to water it down. Everyone, again, can say the Golden Bachelor was a silly show, but to me, it's really not. There is actually so much to be gleaned here. Let me summarize these 7 points of this, not that. 1, make a good first impression. You only have seconds to make it count. 2, go all in. Don't regret sitting on the sidelines of love. 3, be authentically yourself so you are less likely to blindside someone else, and don't allow yourself to being blindsided by being naive. 4, narrate your story. Make it make sense so the other person doesn't see that you're hiding things. Okay? 5, take accountability for your part in relationship. It's the sexiest thing you can do, the hardest thing to do, but own your stuff. If it doesn't work out with this person, it'll work out with the next person, and you will not be sorry for that. 6, heal your wounds. Do your therapy. Be the best version of yourself that you can be. And number 7, pick better. Make smart choices. Don't keep choosing the same types of people and think you're going to get something else. All right. Let me know what you think of this video, because I could do more of this and that, but I want to do the next video, how to change your story in 2024. And again, we're going to have a hiatus because Joey's season isn't going to start till January 22nd. But I'm here in the meantime. Please subscribe to my channel. Share this with other people. I don't want this to just be entertainment. I want it to be education. I want you to walk away from this video feeling like you've actually learned something, that you are getting to be a better partner in your relationships because of reality TV. Because we all watch for entertainment, but if you can get a nugget or a lesson, then I will feel like my job was a success. So let me know. Thank you for all the love and support, and more soon. See you then.